What's up guys? Today we're going to be talking the DQ242 from WLToys. This is a starter FPV quad. Is it worth the money? We're going to find out. The biggest thing with this one is the lack of spatial awareness when you're flying at FPV. Because let's face it, you're gonna buy this one to fly at FPV, and the lens on this one is just too narrow to get a true FPV experience. That being said, you can fly it around using the included monitor on the transmitter, but if you're gonna try flying with any sort of goggles or anything like that, the lens is just too narrow to give you good spatial awareness. So you're gonna wind up crashing into a lot of things, bumping into a lot of things, and really just not having an enjoyable FPV experience. Video quality on the FPV is good. It has a strong signal back to your goggles or to the transmitter, as long as you don't get too far away, because the range isn't great on this one, but I'll get back to that in a minute. It is nice this one will record 720p to an internal micro SD card, but one of the big drawbacks with this one is the battery pops off very easily. Even in the most minor of crashes, you're gonna lose connection with the battery more often than not. When you lose battery connection, you also lose your video files. Your video files will be corrupted. So that's gonna be another source of frustration with this one. The battery pops off very easily, and then you lose your video file if you're recording. My suggestion is, if you are gonna purchase this one and fly it around, make sure you start and stop your video pretty often. Don't just let it run, because you're liable to have a crash and lose your entire video file. Speaking of crashes and things popping off, let's talk about the props. I've had a lot of issues with this one with the props. Even in the most minor crashes, the props come off on this one also. Basically, if you sneeze near this one, the props are gonna come off. I ended up losing most of the included props with this one, so I switched over to the props from the JJ1000 from JJRC, and I've been very happy with them since. I've had a few dings and a few minor crashes here, and the props have not come off yet, and I think it even flies better with these props. As I said, the control distance on this one's not great. It's advertised at 50 meters, but you're gonna find that it will drop out at less than 50 meters. Wasn't a huge problem. You're gonna wanna keep this one fairly close when you're flying, and at times when you're flying FPV, you'll kind of lose track of where you are, and the signal to the transmitter and the quad will drop out. Something to get used to and something to be aware of. The advertised flight time on this one is 10 minutes. And I'm gonna have to go out and say that's an outright lie. I'm getting about 4.5 minutes, maybe 5 minutes in the best case scenario. Charging time on this one is around 50 minutes. So you're basically getting a 4.5 minute flight for a 50-minute charge. That's not the best ratio in my book, and definitely another place where this quadcopter falls short. The controller is big and kind of awkward, but I really didn't have too many issues flying it around. The only minor issue I had with it is my thumb on my right hand tends to hit the sun hood quite often, and it's kind of annoying. Didn't really affect me as far as the maneuverability of the quad in the air, but it was definitely annoying hitting my thumb on the sunshade so often. Outside of that, the controller feels decent in your hands. The FPV screen seems to work very well with this quadcopter. There is no blue screen on it. You get static when you get a dropout, so that's definitely a plus as far as FPV goes. And this controller also has an internal LiPo battery, so you're not gonna run through AA's or AAA's or something like that. You can recharge the battery, so that's definitely a plus with this one. And the battery is gonna last you multiple flights. Also, another annoying thing about the battery is there's no on-off switch on this quadcopter, so once you connect the battery, the quadcopter is powered up. So I think this one would benefit from an on-off switch. Video quality on this one is pretty good, 720p, no jello wobble in it, and you get a decent picture out of it. Pretty standard for your toy grade quadcopter. It is nice to have the micro SD card so you can record your flights, and if you get some cool footage flying through things, flying some nice FPV, it's nice to have a high quality recording of it. As far as the flight characteristics of this one, I did not really like it as an FPV flyer. As I said, the lens on it is very narrow, very easy to crash into things that you didn't even know were there because it was outside of your viewing area with this narrow lens. So I had some problems flying this one FPV, especially in any sort of confined spaces. But as a line of sight flyer, it was actually pretty fun to fly, and it can get fairly maneuverable on the high rate. Definitely not the most maneuverable quad, but a fun flyer nonetheless. The yaw on it is definitely not very extreme. You can get a decent funnel going with it, but the yaw is a little on the slow side, so it's not gonna be super tight. I'm a little underwhelmed with the DQ242 from WLToys. Between the battery coming off and the props coming off, and the narrow lens on the FPV camera, there's a lot of frustration involved with this one. So for the money on this one, I think you should probably pass on it. There's definitely better options out there. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a thumbs up. If I missed anything, or if you have any questions at all, hit me up in the comments below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned for more videos. Until then, happy flying and try not to crash and burn. Could not do that again if I tried.